Hey, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm moving on to the next step in these. I got these off. They're all epoxied together now. So what I'm doing is I'm just lining up. I'm lining up the front here with the side. And what's going to be required is first I'm going to figure out what angle this is going to take to put these two together at the back. And once I get that angle established, I'll just temporarily throw a couple staples in this to hold it while I work on the back section. Then we'll end up sanding an angle in here to actually get this to fit nice and flush to this front piece here. So I'll start by stapling this in place, and then we'll be able to go from there and figure out exactly what that angle needs to be, so that we can just run that through the saw real quick, and then we'll be in a position where we can actually epoxy that together, and we'll have to taper the back end as well so it fits together. But then we can epoxy it together and then figure out what the top piece is going to be. So let me get the stapler, and then we'll go over there and get that back together. Well, get it together for the first time, actually. So now I've got that together at the front. Now I'll just pull it together here at the back. I think to do that, I want to establish this on a center line. So I've already got the center line marked. Got the center line marked on the inside here. Maybe you can't quite see that. So I'll just line that up with the center line I just drew on the table. And looks like I might need to throw another staple in here. Get that to stay in place there. Alright, so then I can pull this together at the back while keeping it on the center line at the front. All right, so I've got it, get it all on the center line here. I got it there and there. So now what I'll do is I'll come in here and actually measure what this angle is right here, so that I can figure out how much I need to trim off of here. And then I'll come back here and I'll figure out how much of this I need to remove in order to get these two guys to fit together the way they should. So all right, so we'll measure the top first. So it's about 7.5 degrees. So that's 7.5 at the front. And what I do in the back is I take this off the center line and actually move it over to where I want it to be. So I want this plywood to end up close to my center line. Then I can actually just sight down the top here, and I can see that my line has got to go somewhere from here, somewhere about here, and then it just tapers out to the plywood here. So it's going to be the same on both sides because I want both of those in the same place. So actually what'll end up happening here is so I'll just go from there out to the plywood, and first I need to square well, I'll square that up in I need these two to be the same. Right now they're a little bit different lengths, so I'm just going to get them so they're both the same length. It's roughly there, just so I know where to put the line. So then we're going to taper from here out to here. So it's going to look like that. And we'll do the same on this side. And taper from there out to there. Look like that. So that's the material that I need to remove off of there. So I'll just do that over on the sander. And then at the front, we'll cut this on the table saw, 7.5 degrees on this end, and then that'll get us right where we need to be. So so I'm gonna go cut this first, and then when I come back, we'll take care of that right there. All right. All right. So you can see I got my end cut to the angle that it needs to be, and after that, the next thing will be I'm gonna actually use my bandsaw because I want this to sit flat the way it's gonna sit, like this, at this angle, which matches this angle. So just double checking that. So I'm going to hold it on my bandsaw. I'm actually going to cut this using the bandsaw so that I can get it going straight up and down, but while it's in this angle, if you understand what I'm saying. So yeah, so I'm going to go over here and get that going here. And all right, so now you can see we're fitting nice and flush here at the front where we cut those angles, and then back here we're fitting nice and flush as well where these two come together, and you saw how we accomplished that. And when we actually epoxy it together, we'll make sure that we're on our center line. Let's see if I put it to the center line here, like the one I have on the table and everything right there. And when I get back here, it's just a matter of getting some weight on this and pushing this over until we're right where we want to be on the center line here. And then we'll get it epoxied together. And once we have that, then we'll be able to come along and just sand this top, because I'm a little bit high on this side, tiny bit high on this side, but we'll get that all sanded nice and flush. And then once we get that, we'll be able to cut the top. We'll be able to cut this top triangle piece. We'll just lay it over on a piece and trace it out and cut that, and we'll get that in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some epoxy mixed up, and we'll just staple the front, just clamp the rear, and we'll be all set there, which is great. So let me get to that. We'll use a little wax paper as well, just to make sure that we don't get epoxy all over the place. So, all right, here we go. Alright, so that's all the time I have for today. So it's another short video, but important nonetheless. I've got this all epoxy together now. I just stapled it on the front side, and I just put a couple staples in the back just to hold that. And so that all looks really good. And I've got it on the on my center line, and so I feel good about that. So now it's we've got a piece to go in the top here, and a piece in the bottom. Once I get this off the table, then we can sand this. We can put that piece in. We can put the piece on the bottom, and then we can also make and epoxy the top piece on here. And then once that's all done, then we'll round off the corners, give it a little bit of a rounded shape on the top there, just so it's not quite so angular. And then I'll be ready to make 4 brackets, get it positioned on the fuselage, and once we get it where it goes here, we'll there'll be 2 brackets here, and then there'll be 2 brackets here wherever they land. Once we get it centered up on here, I'll put in a couple blocks to mount it to back here, and then that'll take care of that. That'll be super easy. Yeah, so that's basically made out of the same material that we have here, the 3/4 inch 4130.100 material. We'll make the brackets out of that, round them off nice, and this is probably even way heavier than it needs to be for this purpose, but that's okay. That's what the plans call for, so that's what we'll do. And I've got that material that we need right here. So it's the same material that your bearings are made out of, this material right here. Speaking of bearings, before I go, I just wanted to mention that if I was to do this again, because I got about 30 degrees of up, but when I get there, I still have just a couple spots that are rubbing. So I'm gonna probably put maybe snap a chalk line on the very edge of this, and then kind of work it back and forth. So when I take the wing off, I can see exactly where that's rubbing, and it's happening on both sides. For the most part, there's like really good clearance in there. I'm not concerned about the fabric touching most of it. In the bottom, there's even more clearance, so it's definitely not a problem. On the bottom side, the problem really persists on the top side. And if I could do it again, I would probably increase that angle on the top side by a couple of degrees. So instead of 45, I'd probably make it like 47. And because it's not rubbing on the outside edge, it's actually rubbing once it hits that inside edge. So, but hey, that's no big deal. We'll just work through that. Make sure we're happy with it before we cover anything. There was a suggestion actually to extend these bearings, make these and extend them about 1/8 of an inch, which would bring them back a little bit. I guess my preference is just to stick to the plan, so I will figure that out. So if you're not a subscriber, I invite you to hit the subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss any of my episodes. And hey, I'll catch you later.